So my vault is showing the light theme, and my Inventor is showing the dark theme. So far, I'm not a huge fan of the dark theme because sometimes when some of the dialog boxes pop up, they're kind of small, and sometimes they're on top, and I don't see them like I did with the light theme, but it's personal preference. People were demanding the dark theme. People seem to like it, so it's been well received. Like I say, as I said, the things that are new in 23 are not huge, except for really the last thing I'll discuss. Now, markups. This one is actually kind of a big deal, and this is starting to show or showcase some of the Forge platform and some of the capabilities. So let's go to the vault. And part of this, you're going to see some new technology, and really what you want to do is interact with the Idea Station, Autodesk. Oh, sorry, Rocky's trying to say hello. Then let's see over here, this guy. Okay, so when we're looking at a particular file, let's say, let's go to, we'll just use this guy. When you click on view, so typically when you check a file in, you typically have create visualization file turned on. So if you guys are not aware of that, so like this file right here, it's work in progress. I'm using Vault Professional. So let's just open this up and take a peek at it. There are some settings that are user specific. There are settings that are persistent, which means they'll stay in effect until you change them otherwise. But there's a lot of settings that I can't push, I can't force onto every user, like some things, and this is one of those. So right now, this file is checked out, and I'll just make a slight change to it just to force it to save. And then when I check this in, see some of these, they come up like that. I really don't see them very well in a dark environment. So I'm going to say yes to this, check it in. Over here, you're going to see the DWF. I've got mine turned off. It's by default, it's on. It's create during check-in. This is great if you do not have large assemblies. Companies like Relax and also Rick from Herrick and White, really, really large assemblies. When you check that in, it's going to create a visualization file for every file, not just the drawing, the assembly, the parts. It's creating a DWF file, and you need that to view it inside of the vault. So what I prefer to do, and this also it greatly increases the time it takes to check those files in. Relax was one of those back years ago. They were checking in assemblies. It was taking minutes to check it in because it was creating those visualization files, because it creates it on the local drive and then simply adds it to vault. So it creates another file for every file. You have 1,000 files, you now have 2,000 files. But the file has to be created before it can be added to vault. So what I prefer to do is, if you're going to do this, I will typically do it for the drawing. I'm sorry. Yeah, do not create. Create during check-in. I can't do that on this particular one because typically what I'll do is I will not apply to all files. So this here, send the job server. I don't really want to talk about this one because it's using the job processor. And unless you have Vault Professional, you don't have access to the job processor. So the two things that you typically have is to create during the check-in or do not create. I'm a huge fan of do not create. And the reason for that is most of our customers use Vault Professional, and Vault Professional has a way of creating that for you automatically, but after the fact. So you don't take the hit on the check-in, you let it process another time. So I like to set mine to do not create. It looks good. That's off. And hit OK. I'll close this. I'll refresh my vault. But here's the gotcha. You click here and you want to view it. You can't. There's nothing to view. You want to click on the part file. there's nothing to view. So typically, Vault does not actually view the IPT or the IDW or the DWG. It's viewing that DWF that's created either at the time of check-in, or if I go here and I do update, that will actually create the visualization file right now for me. Now, depending on how large of a file it is, it can take time.
That's the noise. Thank you.
Okay, so I created it manually by clicking here and clicking update. And now when I click on the file, see how this Forge? Forge is used in the background in order to view the DWF file. Now, starting with 2019, the Vault client, Autodesk stopped including the design review, which was the real application for viewing DWF files. You could view them in Internet Explorer, but there was always some issues. Design review was the only program to view DWF files. So what would happen is, once you did an update and you had the visualization file, once you did the view over here, you needed design review to work because Vault used the program design review to view it in here. Now in my system, you can see this looks a little different now than it did in the past. I do not have design review installed. I am able to view the file now because it's using that Forge technology. So now if I would also, stay here. By viewing window, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to bring this up in a Forge viewing window directly inside of my computer. It's not using design review. One of the questions that comes up is, can I measure? Can I mark up? Absolutely. The measure tool is actually a little bit better here than it is in design review. We're kind of quirky, and we'll call it ADR for the Autodesk design review. When you come over here, you're going to get basically your snaps. You're going to get your measurements there. And if you were to do it at a slight angle, you typically get the delta. Come on. Let me see. We got that. Measure. Here we go. I'm having some pick and click issues there. Okay. So you can measure. You can measure areas. You can measure angles. You can even calibrate it. So if you were to bring in a TIFF file, and they're really at no scale, but if you knew something that had a particular scale, you could calibrate it. You can specify 2 points on the screen, and then you tell the system what the dimension is. Now it has a reference to go by, so you can measure the rest of the document, and it actually works out pretty well. When you're done measuring, just hit done. And the other thing we can actually do is markup. We have a markup tool. We do things like that. We can do text. And when I hit done, it's gone, but I'll go back to my markup. I did not save it, so it was temporary. But if I want to make it permanent, I hit save, and I can do what they call save as data and as screenshot. When I first saw this, it really didn't make a lot of sense to me, because what is as data? So what it really is actually, it creates a markup that's physically attached to the file. And back in the days of 2021 and earlier, when you did a change order, you did a markup, you had to create a separate DWF file, and that was typically attached to the change order. This is actually saved directly in the file. So if I do as data and I give it a name, I'll call it just test. I hit done. And this was the area that I was a little confused about. I have no way of knowing if that file has a markup. I haven't found the ability yet to search to find files with the markup. If I just happen to view in window, right? Forge, again, it's just a platform. When I'm viewing this file, where's the markup? The only time I actually will see it is if I go into markup, and then I'll see the current markup that's in there, and I can actually edit it and see it, change it, or I can create a new one on top of it. What I've been looking for since I've seen this is how do I know what files have a markup? You know, I'd like to be able to do a search on that and be able to quickly identify if I'm looking at a file, if there are markups, so I don't actually have to go into the view, into the markup to see the markups. So again, this is new technology. Autodesk typically does this, and they will improve it as they go. So Forge is really just a platform for viewing. Now, this file right here, if I look at it, there's no view. I have to hit update. But what I will tell you is that with Vault Professional, this doesn't work with Vault Basic. When this file is checked in, and for instance, if I change the state to be released, I have the system configured. So when I do that, Vault Professional will create the visualization file. It'll synchronize the properties, and it will actually even create a PDF file. And you'll see that over here. Let's bring this guy onto the screen. So this particular computer is just sitting on a table on the other side of my room. It is running the job processor. It actually is running the Cool Orange powered jobs processor. We've talked about that in the past at a previous meeting, so I'm not going to get into that today. But just basically, this is the job processor. And what I'm going to do is, if we were to wait anywhere between 1 and 10 minutes, you'd actually see this job automatically get processed. That's what the job processor does. It has a little timer, and every 10 minutes is the default time frame. It'll look to see if there's any jobs that need to be processed. If you don't want to wait, I'm just going to pause and resume. Just run any job that's in there right now. And let's minimize this. I've got a little bit of an issue here, job queue. All right, so my job processor, what I have is a bit of an issue with the licensing. So let me actually run it from over here. I thought I corrected it this morning, but I still got to fix that. I'll run it on this computer. All right, sneak in there, back to my job queue. These two failed, so I'm gonna do is just gonna resubmit the jobs. And now it's running. So what happens is, because I'm using Vault Professional and I'm using file management, Vault will automatically synchronize the property so the rep matches. It will create the visualization file, most importantly, and then it'll create a PDF file. And that's what you're seeing happening right here, Vault DWF create. So it does that for you. So I don't have to take the hit when I actually check a file in. All I have to do is change the state, and it does everything for me. I don't have to think about it. DWFs get updated, PDFs get updated, they get created, everything is just good. And this just runs in the background, and it's just rock solid. It just runs constantly. It is just about done. Go to my job queue over here. It's processing that file right now. Done. Okay. So typically when you release a file, you just move on to something else. You're not going to wait for it to create it. Here's the PDF that got created automatically. Now, if I go to the IDW file, if I go to view, it will view. It will already be there. It's going to work dynamically. Same with the IPT file. Everything gets created. But again, Forge is the viewing engine behind the scenes. The DWF file, you might say, where is it, right? So what it does, it's basically a hidden file. It's in the vault. If I were to go to Tools, Options, show hidden files, I'll see all of the DWF files. Right there, right here, right here. The problem is it gets really busy, so we don't really need to see these. We just need to know that they're being created and everything is being identified for us. And options. So I prefer to have that shut off. We don't need to see those DWF files. So once a file is released, file is locked, everything gets processed in the background. The rep gets updated, the title block gets updated. I didn't do the Rev C. I didn't have to go into Inventor and do update properties. All of that stuff is done for you. But the biggest difference is Cool Orange. I'm sorry, not Cool Orange. Forge is the driving force behind the viewing of those files. So what if we have users out there, excuse me, you have Vault with the item master. And it is this guy. So some of you, and I know one of you is already connected today, is we have questions. I think we're okay. Everyone sees my screen, correct?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, good. So the item master doesn't behave quite the same way. So if I am looking at a file right here.
Hey Tim, we have a question from Kim. It says, can you customize where things get saved?
All right, so is that in regards to those DWFs or PDFs? DWF, no. The DWF file, those get created automatically and they're saved in the exact same folder as the file, and they're hidden. They're basically, it's an attachment. Those that you cannot configure. The PDF you can, so you can actually control that. Okay, so in this particular file right here, you can see that it's locked. This is the item. And if I were to go to the file, go to the folder. So this is different. These files are controlled by Vault's item master. We have fewer companies using this. This is the older technology. And when Autodesk first came out with Vault, this is all we had, was the item master. And it has some great functionality, things that the files can't do, and vice versa. There are things that you can do in the files you can't do in the item master. And for instance, one of those is synchronize the properties, automatic DWF creation, and PDFs. You just cannot do that. So this particular file right here, if I go to view it, there's nothing there. If I were to go to the item master, which is what typically controls it, maximize this, and I go to view, I click on the IDW file here, and it doesn't work. So what happens is the item master works a little bit differently. When you release an item, the files, you always have to do the update, and then you update the item, and then you release it. That locks the files, but it does not do anything else for you. It does not create the DWFs. It does not create the PDFs. And Kim Palumbo and I speak frequently, and one of the things that she does is when files are released, she's got to go into each drawing and create DWF and PDF of those files and put them in specific areas. That is a lot of work, and I will tell you, the user group today and all of our user groups is not meant to be salesy. They're meant to be information, but we're also looking at automation. Cool Orange has a program that does that for the item master. When you release an item, it'll do everything to the item that Vault does to the file. It'll create the visualization file. It'll create the PDF. It'll put them wherever you designate them to be. And the only thing you have to do is meet the criteria of the system. You release the item, and all of the files within that item get processed. So what you have to do today, without any add-ons, if I release this file, I have to go into the item, I have to go to the file, and I have to hit update. Now, the only thing that's going to do is create the visualization file. I'm still not going to get a PDF. And again, Forge is in the background. and I can now view it, which is helpful. So at least I have that capability, but that's a couple of extra steps that you have to do. And today everyone's looking at automation. How can I be better? I don't want to forget any of the files. If I release an assembly that has 1,000 parts, I want to make sure every part that has a drawing gets issued. Visualization file gets created, PDF gets created. It's a lot of work if you have to do it yourself. But let's go back to that. So let's say that we are in a file like this. Some of you would still create your DWFs and you create them outside of the vault, and people use those for viewing. I would argue that maybe we want to look at some different technology. If it's for markup, the DWFs are great. PDFs, I don't think the markup is as good as the DWFs. But if you wanted to create a DWF and you do it manually, you're doing it from here. You're doing File, Export, Export to DWF. Now, this is a side note. That little command, Export to DWF, worked great in 2022 and earlier. When 2023 came out, I was getting a few phone calls. Export to DWF wasn't available. It was grayed out. So it looks like there was an update that was released last week. If you apply the update, and as Kim and I found out, reboot your computer, it will then work. So if I do an export to DWF, and I will publish this, I'll put it somewhere. I'll put it in my workspace. It's going to be called ArborPress DWFX, and I'll save it. And close that. What I tried to do right there was I tried to view it, but I don't have Design Review installed on my computer. So if I minimize this and this and this, and I'm looking at my workspace, which is on my C drive. Here's the ArborPress DWFX. I don't have a program to view it. What I do have is access to the web, right? So this is viewer.autodesk.com. Just minimize this a little bit like that. Typically, people work with 2 monitors because we're doing a webinar. I'm going to bring everything on one screen. So here is my DWF file. And I want to view it. All I do is just drag it into the Autodesk Viewer. You can't right-click Open in Viewer. I think that'll be coming. You just have to drag it into this website. Autodesk is processing it. And if you drag 10 files into there, it might take a little bit depending on the type of file that it is. And they'll send you an email when it's done. So here is the web viewer. And it works just like it does, or virtually just like it does in Vault. I can measure. Right, you can measure. Done to that. I can mark up. Here's my markup tools. And you can save these markups. And they're going to be saved right in the web. Now, here is one of the little gotchas. I will actually, that's good. Let's see. I'll go back to home. Okay. I'm going to get out of this. I'm going to go back to the Autodesk Viewer. And this is going to show me all of the DWF files, all of the step files, all of the SolidWorks files. This basically views any CAD type file type. It's unbelievable viewer. It views everything. Here is the one gotcha. Now, I viewed this DWF file. I dragged it to the viewer and I was able to view it. If Kim were to update that DWF file, I'm not looking at the updated DWF. I'm looking at the file that I transferred to the cloud viewer. So if that would be the case, you'd actually have to update it and look at the newer version of it. So that's how we view DWF files without Design Review. Design Review is still available. I can't tell you for how long. Autodesk is getting away from Design Review, and it's also getting away from Inventor View. So again, starting with 2019, When you installed the Vault client, you did not get designer view. You had to do it yourself. So this is one way of everyone can still do what they need to do, and you don't have to install any software on any of the clients. If you use a thin client, it's going to use Forge as its viewing platform. But again, you still have to have those visualization files associated with your CAD documents, and it's going to view it. It's going to view it dynamically. So that's just how the viewing works inside of the Vault. Any questions on that? I know there was a lot going on there.
Yes, there's one. Does the file stay on the web? Who has access to these files?
Great question, because if you look at it right here, it expires in 30 days. That's it. It's going in 30 days. You cannot, if I were to bring in, say, an Inventor document and I share it with someone, they can't download it. They can't reverse engineer it. They can only view it. If I come over here, the only thing I can do is delete it, and I can share it with someone else. So if I wanted to share this document with Juliana, I can do that. She can view it. That's it. You can't download it. You can't do a save as. You can't reverse engineer. It's protecting your intellectual property. So the one thing is it expires in 30 days. And if I needed to, I could always extend it for another period of time. But 30 days typically is when it expires and it goes away.
Thank you, James.
Sure. Yeah. Has anyone not seen the Autodesk Viewer before today? It's been around for a few years.
Yes, Gavin, you can speak if you want.
Okay. All right. So that's the markups. Now, client enhancements, not a lot of big things. Default settings for viewing Inventor files. Inventor read-only mode, Inventor view. Always use Inventor read-only mode. So what Autodesk is trying to do is, again, Inventor view is a program very similar to DWG TrueView, Autodesk Design Review. It's just a viewing engine. However, it's just a viewing engine for Inventor files. Some negatives to it. It doesn't handle large assemblies very well. It doesn't support express mode. It doesn't support IPN files. You can't view those. So they had a lot of limitations. So that's why Autodesk came out with the Inventor read-only mode. So basically anyone can install Inventor. You don't have to license it. And you have Inventor read-only in there. So if someone's viewing files, we'll say the Pro client or even the web client or the thin client, whatever you want to call it, it can actually view the files in the Inventor read-only mode. It does require that you install Inventor on those computers, but you don't have to license it, and it does have access to the client, to the Vault client. It just works better than the Inventor view. Here's that, and then some administrative. Again, only an administrator can assign this. Tools options can be done by the user. Tools, administration, Vault settings can only be done by the administrator. So this little checkbox has changed. It used to be disable check-in of design files. And all that means is you have AutoCAD files, Inventor files. You cannot right-click over here. Close this. You can't right-click and add files. You can't use Windows Explorer and drag files into Vault. You have to check those files in from the CAD program, AutoCAD, AutoCAD Electrical, Inventor. And it's really important so that you're getting the history, the hierarchy. So when you check in an assembly file, so when I click on a part file, I know where it's used. When I click on a drawing file or an assembly, I know what its use is. So this is all a big deal. If you just drag files in, if we allow you to just drag files in, that history is not there. I can always open the assembly, fix it, if I open the assembly in Inventor, save it and check it back in through Inventor, it'll repair those links in the hierarchy, but you typically don't want to do that. So what they've added for the 23, it was very rigid, all right? Disable of any check-in of any CAD files. So what they've now done is that I can actually be very granular. So I can specify AutoCAD files. If you never use XREFs, shut it off. If you do use XREFs, turn it on. Otherwise, same thing. You want to make sure that when you check a file in, XREFs get checked in. If I click on a file, I want to know if that file is referenced by any other AutoCAD files. It's really important. So you can be very specific as far as what files can be dragged in and what files cannot. So it's just a little bit more granular. And if you had certain application or a certain extension that you wanted to do and wanted to add, you could do that here. Something like that. Anything with a .xpp, we want to check in from the application. Because maybe I wrote a Vault add-in for that program, and I want to make sure those files get dragged or checked in appropriately. If you don't want it, you can get rid of it. So they've just made that a little bit more extensive as far as capabilities. The next one is kind of hokey. It's colors. When you go into your life cycles, whether it be file or item master, so if I go to flexible, they've now added some color glyphs to the different states, and you can change this. So if I edit this, so my work in process state is green. Released, I may want that red. Red means stop, right? You can't change that. So maybe red's a better color for that. So you can just adjust your colors for your states. And then if you choose to, I can actually add it to my column grid. Customize view, fields. State glyph. And I'll just move that up to by the state. It's okay. If you didn't want to see the state, you want to do the colors, you can now do that. That's entirely up to you. Again, a little bit hokey, not bad. All right. So that's basically it for most of the client and admin things. The last one I'm saving for was the what they call the VPN List Gateway. Now, this has come up an awful lot since COVID, is that when companies and personnel started working from home, I can't tell you how many phone calls I got. I need to work from home. How do I do it? I need to access my vault. I installed Inventor. I installed Vault at home. How do I get access to the vault? Well, that was up to your IT. IT had to give you a VPN that gave you access and connectivity to the server. Once you had that, then you could simply work. You could open files, you can check in, you could do all of that great stuff as long as you use that VPN first. That was a lot of work, and IT had some issues, and they were concerned about that. And I can't even tell you how many times I got a phone call from people working from home. I can't connect. My first question was, did you connect your VPN? Oh, I always forget that. So it was always a bit of a problem. So starting with 23, Autodesk came up with a new buzzword. Now they are about a year too late to the game, but a lot of people still work from home. VPNs are still a bit of a pain, and this is a secure way of working. So what you do, here is my Vault server. And I'm going to bring up the Vault server application. This is the ADMS. And under Tools, Manage Vault Gateway. Now, what you're seeing right here, this is what you would see in your Autodesk account. Now, depending on Richard Ryder's on the call today, he and I spoke a few weeks ago, and there was a video that he saw that the individual said, Autodesk is ridiculous with this VPN gateway. They're making people buy another license of Vault. That is completely untrue. You do not need an additional license of Vault just for this gateway to work. What you need is access to your Vault account as I think it's called a You get the primary administrator, and I think there's a secondary administrator. Is that right, Juliana and Richard? Am I right in those terms?
I'm
I believe so.
Okay. So you have to be at least access to someone who has a primary administrator, or you yourself have to be a secondary administrator. And that's really all you need. And every account has one of those. So let's say, for instance, let's say Rich over at Herrick and White, his boss is the primary administrator. He doesn't want any secondary administrators. Rich would need that individual's information to get the Vault Gateway set up. And that's all that's necessary. Everyone who has an Autodesk product or an account has a primary administrator. That's it. So I'm going to use my account here. I am a secondary administrator, so I can use my account. So at this point, that gives you access to the Vault Gateways. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to configure it. And what Autodesk is going to do, it's going to give me a HTTPS automatically generated URL that I will use to log in. So I'm going to configure. There's only 2 territories, US Northeast and Dublin, Ireland. They're using, I'm not sure if it's AWS or Microsoft, but they're using cloud servers to manage this. Now the service account, that's where I'm going to log in. This would be the account that, this is the person who actually has a Vault Pro license. Kim Palumbo, Brian Moore, Rich from Herrick and White. If you have, you could use your account for that. And I'm going to use my account. Okay, close your eyes. Okay, so I just created it. I logged in and I hit OK. Now, the first time you do this, and I might have to wait a little bit, it may not work immediately. This can take 15, 20 minutes for it actually to work. Do a refresh. And eventually I'm going to get a host name in here that I can actually use. Give it a, there it is. So it's not connected yet. It's still working. So that, and refresh. So this may not work immediately, but basically this is the URL that is created. And if I copy this, I'll minimize that. So here's a Vault client right here, another one. I'm going to do File, Log In. I'm going to log in as me, and I'm going to do my password. And you can see I'm not logging into my server name. I'm using the HTTPS URL that was generated by the gateway. I'm going to click over here and see if it's working. Again, this might take 20 minutes, and it did the first time I did this to actually work, but it does work well. What I did want to show you is that if I try once I get connected, once I try logging in, my account will fail because my password, yeah, it's still working. It's trying to, it's still gaining access to the web server. Eventually, once this is working, it'll fail with my login name because my password doesn't meet the criteria. So Windows security is 8 characters with numbers. And let's see here. Forget exactly what it said. 8 or more characters with at least 1 number and a letter. So it does want that password complexity or it will not work. And you are logging in with a Vault account, not a Windows authentication or Windows account, because you're not connected to a domain. This is a great strategy. So Relex hires MicroCAD to do some design work or do some editing or do some drafting for them. So they could set up the default gateway. They could give Richard Ryder that URL. He could log in. He doesn't need a VPN. He can now log into their Vault with his license, but he's going to log in with a Vault account. He's not going to have a Relex domain. He's able to log in and work with whatever files he needs to. He could check out, check in based on demand. And with Vault Professional, we can even get into access security where we can specify a particular folder that is the only folder that Rich has access to. He can't access anything else, but he can still check out and check in as he would normally. Do not need a VPN. He only needs that URL. So let's say that MicroCAD did all the work for Relax. The job is finished, it's complete. They move on to another job. Relax is concerned about that URL being out there. Simply just delete it, create another gateway. It'll create another unique URL at that particular moment. So the previous ones will no longer work. So it's very secure. It is HTTPS. There are no, I won't get into too much IT. There is absolutely no port forwarding, unblocking that has to be done. It's all done through this Autodesk VPN List Gateway. It's just using this URL that gives people access. The one caveat to this, it only works with the Vault client. The thin client doesn't work yet. It may work in 24, but right now it's only the Vault client that it actually works with. So let's see if this actually is working now. I was delaying, but I don't know if I delayed enough. It does take a little bit for that first time because I had it working before today's session, but I deleted it so I could show you the steps that it involved to create that gateway, which is not hard. You just need access. So I'll say if Richard Ryder was our primary administrator and I'm just a Vault user, I would use Rich's account to get me the access, and I'll use my account to actually configure the URL. So let's go back to here, refresh, and eventually that'll say connected. So it's still working right now, but again, about 15, 20 minutes, and then that'll be fine. That is the VPN List Gateway. Close that. Are there any questions on that?
Yes. Where the settings to SHG colors for states? Missed it. And it is across the board or specific to the user?
So where are the settings to change colors for states? Okay, missed it. Okay, good. All right, so to change the colors, that is an admin thing. So I'm going to log back into actually, I'm going to get out of this guy. I'll wait for that one. So under Tools, Administration, Vault Settings, Behaviors. So typically anything to do with an admin and Vault, that's where we typically go. Tools, Administration, Vault Settings. And because I do so much in there, I just created a Vault Settings shortcut on my menu. So Vault Settings. And anytime we do an admin thing, it's usually in the Behaviors tab. And that's the colors is all defined under the life cycles. So you would go to your life cycle. For this particular case, it's flexible release. You would edit, and in here you would simply change a color for that particular state. So that's across the board, not specific to the user. I'm changing the behavior of that particular life cycle. So that's fixed, it's hard coded, that's for everyone. You're all welcome.
Thank you, James.
All right, any other questions? Again, this is networking. Your questions do not have to pertain around my demonstration. We always try to show something, but the something is not what these meetings are about. It's about networking. It's about interacting. You can ask Booleanic questions. You can ask myself, Richard Ryder. He's another associate. He's one of our other technical specialists with MicroCAD. You can ask us anything that relates to anything Autodesk. It doesn't have to be just on my presentation today. Hey, Kim, what's up?
Can you hear me?
Yes, it looks like there's a little bit of a delay before you start speaking, but go ahead.
It figures under that life cycle definition area. The one
Yes,
thing I wanted to change was the obsolete, and it will not allow you.
you're in the item release process, right? Because you use item master.
Yeah.
Right there. You have to hit edit and you change the color.
Oh, I had to hit it. There it is.
Yeah, because the life cycle itself is you're in view only mode. You actually have to hit edit to truly make a change. So these life cycles, those definitions, it's very what's the word I'm looking for? Intentional. You don't make a change by accident here. You actually have to hit edit and truly go through it to make those changes.
Okay. That was the clue.
Any other questions? All right. Well, I have a question for all of you. What we want to do is we are listening to your feedback. That's why we are trying new technology until we get back to being on site. We hope to be doing that soon. What I want to do is I'd like you to reach out to MicroCAD and to list topics, things that you want to see us cover. A lot of times, Julian is reaching out to me. Jim, what are we going to do for the next user group? I don't know. Let's see. I get a lot of questions about this particular topic, so let me focus on that. That's typically what leads to my presentations is what's hot at the time. But I would really love to hear from you. Reach out to MicroCAD in an email. You can send it to Uliana, and what she will do is she'll collect those and then reach out to me, and then we can determine, which ones have the most traction or demand for, let's focus on that particular topic and to try to get a meeting on there. So we really want to hear from you. So please reach out to Juliana so that we can actually do that for you.
Yes, and especially because this not only help us to get better, but it gives you high quality content that you actually are looking for. So yeah, that would be great if you could contact us, let us know what would you like to see next, what are you seeing that is hot topic on the market and you still don't know, and we gladly will listen to those suggestions.
So a lot of times in the past, I've gone over, I've tried to be conscious and respectful of your time. I do appreciate the time you take to attend these user group meetings. I enjoy doing them. It helps me when I start looking into the details. I can better support my customers. So I really enjoy this. I'm glad for the time that you take out of your schedule to attend. But I'm looking for questions right now. If you have anything, reach out.
Yeah, we have another one. Still want to understand model states better.
Okay. Then maybe what we'll do for the next user group, maybe we can focus on the model states unless we get more information from others on that. But model states is something we have covered in the past. Juliana, I'm actually going to request, Kim has asked this in the past, and I didn't have access to it, is the previous recording on the model states. If you could share that with her, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, yeah, sure thing.
But the models have changed a little bit with 23. They were introduced in 22, and they were updated in 23. So I'm thinking the next meeting that could be useful to spend some time there.
Definitely, yeah. All right, and thank you so much, Tim. Sorry, James. I was with Tim last week. Thank you so much for your time. This was great. I think showing these things and actually making people interact and ask questions is what really gives this user group the value it has. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you all for your time. I appreciate it, and I will see you all very soon.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. And as a reminder, we post all of our webinars on our YouTube channel, and we also offer group classes online. If you want to learn more in detail these topics, you can take a custom training with James or someone else on our team. So yeah, that concluded our webinar today. So thank you so much for attending, everybody, and have a great day. And thank you so much, James.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Richard.